In this video, we're going to look at a few of the settings in the status bar at the bottom of the screen, and there's three main settings that we're going to look at today, which are Ortho Mode, Polar Tracking, and Object Snaps. The Ortho Mode button is located right here, and it looks like the right angle symbol. When the button is blue, Ortho Mode is on, and when it is gray, it's off. So in order to turn it on, I'm just going to click on it, and I can see that it turned blue, and my command bar is also telling me Ortho Mode is on, and I can click on it again to turn it off. Another way to turn Ortho Mode on and off would be to use the function keys on your keyboard. So these are those F keys at the top of your keyboard, and if I hit F8, it turns it on and off. So as I press the key, we can see the command bar noting that it's being turned on and off, and then we can also see the button turn blue and gray. So I'm going to leave Ortho Mode on and just kind of note what it does. So to see how it works, I'm going to start using the line tool. So I'm just going to come up to my toolbar, and I'm just going to click on the button for line, and then just click anywhere in the drawing space to start a line. So while I have the tool active and it's telling me to specify a point, I'm just going to click to place a point and move my cursor. Even if I move my cursor slightly up or down, my line is going to stay horizontal unless I go drastically up or drastically down, and then it'll turn into a vertical line. But I can only draw perfectly horizontal lines at 0 degrees or 180 degrees, or perfectly vertical lines at 90 degrees. Once I click a second time, I've made a line now, and then I can move my cursor in the direction I want to go, click to make my line, move my cursor in the direction I want to go, click to make my line. Once again, only it will go horizontal or vertical because I'm in Ortho Mode. And we can think of that like our orthographics. We had all of those horizontal, vertical lines. And that's how we can kind of relate the two. To finish off this line, or just to end the command in all of its entirety, I'm just going to hit the escape key on my keyboard, which we can see cancels everything, and I've left the command. Ortho Mode is a good feature for making, well, as I said, those orthographics. You don't have to worry about keeping your cursor straight in Ortho Mode, and you can quickly change directions, type the distance you want as your measurement, and get your drawings done. Now, I personally do not often or don't really use Ortho Mode all that often, but I wanted to show it to you, especially if you think it is an option that could help you when you're just starting out with AutoCAD. Now, instead of Ortho Mode, I prefer the setting of Polar Tracking. Polar Tracking is located right next to Ortho Mode, and it looks like a little pizza pie with someone taking a slice out of it. And for its keyboard shortcut, it is the F10 key on your keyboard. So one thing you may notice is that when I turned Polar Tracking on, it automatically turned Polar Tracking off. That is because since they both control similar features in our drawings, we cannot have them both on at the same time. So I can either click to turn both of them off, or I can have just one or the other on. I cannot have both on simultaneously. So we'll see how Polar Tracking works. Again, I'll start with a line. So I'll just click on the line button up here, and I'll click somewhere in my drawing to start it. And when I move my cursor to draw, I do have free range of motion, but there is that little dotted green line that appears at specific angles. So as I have my line horizontal, it kind of snaps or tracks a little bit to keep that line horizontal, and I can have it set to various degrees. So in this instance, I have my polar tracking set to 30 degrees. So every 30 degrees, that little dotted line or dashed green line will pop up telling me that my cursor currently is set at that degree. The line will snap to these angles or track to them, so I can still draw horizontal and vertical lines just like I did with polar or with ortho mode. I just do have to be a little bit more careful about making sure I keep my cursor horizontal, but then I also have the ability to do angles if I so choose. And again, I'll just hit the escape button on my keyboard to end the command. As I mentioned, there are different angles you can set for polar tracking. So if I click on this little down arrow next to the polar tracking button, I can select for different degree variations. So I can have it where it just does every 90 degrees, kind of like ortho mode, 45, 30. I can even go into the tracking settings and I can set it to any angle I wanted. So if I wanted every 17.3 degrees, I could type that in right here and it'll track to every 17.3 degrees. I personally, excuse me, I'm yawning. I personally do like every 30 degrees, but that's ultimately going to be up to you. So I'm going to leave polar tracking turned on, but you can kind of set whatever you want to. Now the last thing we'll look at this video is object snaps. So object snaps are little green shapes that you could have possibly already seen popping up while you were making drawings. And these are points in your drawings that your cursor or whatever you're drawing will automatically go to or automatically snap to when you're drawing. Common ones are things like endpoints, which are little squares that are popping up, midpoints or little triangles, center points, which we haven't drawn any circles or arcs, so we haven't seen any of those, but those are circles, and even more different shapes that pop up. So to turn object snaps on or off, you can just click on this little box icon here, or its keyboard shortcut F3 on your keyboard turns them on and off. Let's practice a little bit. So again, I'm going to go into the line tool. And now if I wanted to draw a line that met perfectly on that corner, we can see that little green square that popped up. So I can click to go perfectly to that square and then perfectly to that point. So it's a way where I can easily draw lines that meet each other nicely without having to worry about if they meet or don't meet. One thing to keep in mind with object snaps is that anytime those green shapes pop up, it will go there even if your cursor isn't there. So for example, if I have my cursor currently where it is, but note how this green square over here pops up. So even though my cursor isn't on that endpoint, if I click right now, it will snap to that point. So sometimes object snaps can get a little frustrating, but all in all, they are more helpful than harmful in my opinion. So I'm just going to use Control Z to undo so it's not snapped to there. And if there is a specific object snap that you want, you can find it by holding Shift and right-clicking while in a command. So for example, while I'm still currently in the line command, if I hold the Shift key and right-click, I get a little menu of different object snaps I can select from. When I pick an object snap from this menu, it's going to ignore all other snaps and only go to the one I choose. So for example, if I click on midpoint, now it's going to ignore any endpoint and it's just going to show me the middle of all of these lines. So I then easily can draw to the middle of a line. Anytime those green shapes pop up, your drawing will automatically go to that point, even if you don't click exactly on it. If you're curious about what the different symbols are that pop up, so what the boxes versus the triangles versus the X's and things like that, we'll click on this little arrow next to object snaps, and we'll go into the snap settings. And this is where we can also turn ones on or off to kind of, I guess, exist in our drawing. So we can say that we want midpoints to always show up. We want the quadrants of a circle to always show up. But this then gives us a little kind of key or legend of what the different symbols in your drawings are and what they mean, as well as then whether or not we can turn them on or off. And if you hover over them, it will tell you what that snap is, or it will define that snap for you as well. So what I'd like for you to do is take some time to just practice drawing lines with ortho mode and polar tracking and object snaps. And remember that anytime you want to end the line command, you can hit the escape key on your keyboard. So take a few minutes to play around with these settings, get familiar with them. I won't be collecting or grading anything you do with this practice, so it's just more your time to get more comfortable with drawing lines and features before we do jump in to some of our graded work. In the next video, we're going to look at how to select objects that we draw and how to delete different lines and objects that we draw. So I'll see you there.